Okay, so we are reaching the end. It is week 14. Online students, face-to-face students, you've come a long way with me here, learning all sorts of stuff about being in the sales commission career in real estate. And I left a few things for the end that I just wanted to further clarify and make sure that you understood. And those are collected into these notes, and then we're going to do a bit of a test review as well, which I don't call a test review because we're not supposed to do a test review. It'll be an overview of some material that could possibly be on the test. That will happen in the next class and or the next video. So in this class, to wrap things up, we are going to be covering the value that you're going to get as a customer or client in real estate and how much of a role that plays as opposed to the house itself or the listing itself. Remember that this is a sales profession and you still have to promote the benefits of what you're trying to do. Okay, promoting the benefits of what you're trying to do for these sellers, promoting the benefits of what a house might do for these buyers is going to be a little better than going in and saying, hey, look at all the bells and whistles on this house that they might not even need. So we're going to talk about that because it's a very important concept for you to walk away with. You don't want to leave this course thinking, well, as long as I get some amazing houses, I'm automatically going to sell them. You have to sell them the right way. You have to show people that there's something there that they're going to get value out of. In the process of that, I'm going to sort of identify the difference between investors and potential homeowners and how they will be different as clients for you, because this is one thing we didn't get to spend a lot of time on either, so I left it for week 14. And we're going to go back and revisit the clients versus customers situation in the context of multiple representation one more time. There's a short video we're going to watch on multiple representation, and there's some additional notes in the video that I'm not going to cover verbatim in my podcast lecture. I am going to ask that you guys review those notes prior to the test. So it's one of those slides where I can literally show you, this is probably going to be on the test, okay? So, testimonials, after you're all done helping somebody out. Do you want these things? What are they and why they are so good? You definitely want people to be going out and saying good things about you. You definitely want this. And all you have to do is ask for them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and that will pretty much wrap up the content for this course on that last slide. We'll do a bit of a material overview in the next video or next class, and then you will have your final test. So, and there's a reminder about customer relationship management software too. I sort of tied that in with the testimonials. Let's talk about benefits. Now, you haven't had to take a sales class yet, I'm guessing. I don't think, has anyone in here taken a sales class?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the portion of customer relations.
Yeah, so you probably had to do a bit of sales in there where they go on about benefits, not features, benefits, not features, a feature, and what the difference is between the two things, right? A feature is something a house has, a benefit maybe is something a house does. You got that? Okay, that's an interesting way of thinking of it because that makes it almost seem like sort of a disposable product, but it's not. It's a house, but people still want to feel that what they're getting is providing those benefits in some way. They need that value added. So I'm going to give you some examples that will help clarify why this is so important and why after learning all the stuff we learned, you have to remember that you still are going to be selling. You still need to be cognizant of individual client and customer needs and wants and what they have going on. All their lives are going to be different. This is going to be an ever-changing thing for you. So looking at it on the buyer side, the same exact house in the same exact location might be worth very different amounts to different buyers. And this could even be over and above the market value because of specific things that house has that create benefits for certain buyers. So benefits are almost always resulting, when you're looking at it from a buyer point of view, they're almost always resulting from something that the house has. So you could almost say, well, features and benefits are the same exact thing. But that's not true because not all features create benefits for all buyers. Okay, you might have something in the house that creates a benefit for one buyer that is useless to another. And I'll give you those examples too. So that's why it might be different. The house may benefit different buyers in different ways. Okay, so there might be similar features that you might have to pitch differently to different buyers, even though they're the same feature, because you know their family anatomy is different. Their family makeup is different in terms of who's coming and going when and when they work and how they do that kind of stuff. So it's tricky, and you'll really get the hang of it once you do it a few times. But this is the kind of stuff they don't really teach you when you go off and get licensed. So if you go off to Humber and do all the courses, there's going to be all sorts of stuff in there that I did not teach you, because I didn't want to regurgitate the same stuff over and over that you're going to have to go over extensively when you go for your licensing. Okay, that's a lot about policy, it's a lot about paperwork, it's a lot about regulations. We went over that to some degree. We had a week on paperwork. It was one of our longest weeks. But I wanted to teach you more how to be as a salesperson once you get into the field. Remember when Adam Miller came in as a guest speaker in week 4, I believe it was, and he said, they're not going to be able, you need to learn all this stuff. He wasn't downplaying or belittling the fact that you have to go and learn this stuff to be licensed. And then as soon as you get in the field, you don't use any of it, and they don't teach you anything you need to know once they throw you out there to the wolves. You need to know how to work with people. You need to know how to deal with rejection. You need to know how to connect people and their lifestyles to the product, which is real estate. It's very hard to get your head around all this stuff. So it's pretty simple just to go in knowing that, yeah, I got this great deal on a great house, and you're probably going to have to present it to every one of your buyers that the house might work for in a little bit of a different way. Not the same exact way. When you're listing it, every buyer sees that same presentation. So when you're listing a house, you have to be even more cognizant or aware of trying to make sure that people don't miss these features that might result in benefits for them. It's tough. So here's some examples. Larger garages, taller garage door. Like I see a lot of houses, they're usually out in the country, that have a garage door that's tall enough that you could pull an RV in. Who the heck would want this giant garage taking up half of their curb appeal on the front of their house if they did not have an RV? Right? So this is a pretty cool feature to have on a house that might send a lot of buyers right on down the road because they have zero interest in it simply because they don't have an RV. So it's a cool feature. So should you go out of your way in that listing to make sure that everybody knows you have there's parking for an RV there or parking for a large boat? Yeah, but probably in the photo notes, right? Because that might not be a benefit that should be right at the top of the list. There might be other things in that house that people would be attracted to enough to overlook the fact that they don't need that giant garage. So that's just an example, okay? Having a professional shop space, and the house might cost more money because of that, and nobody's ever going to pay extra money for that unless they actually plan on using a professional shop space. It's got compressor hoses running around the garage. It's got 220 power instead of the regular power, so you can plug in some huge stuff. And it's a great feature, but does the mass market care about that? Not necessarily, yet you can't really list a property that has stuff like that without mentioning it, because then the people who are looking for something like that might miss it. So you're in this sort of space where you don't want to oversell stuff that's really unique, but at the same time, you want to make sure people understand that the house is at a certain price because of those unique features. So here's my point. If you think it's a really good deal, but you have a couple with few kids and they're looking for a house in the country and it happens to have that, and you know the price is $50,000 higher because of that, and you know they're never going to use it, don't even show it to them. It's not the right place for them, right? And that's why it's good that when you are listing it, well, you don't want to scare people away because of these features. You do want to make sure that people know about all the unique stuff that's going on in a house. And we're going to get to the listing page in a second. Upper level master with upper level laundry. We love it. Okay, my wife's in her 30s, I'm in my early 40s. I don't have any issue walking up and down the stairs, and I don't plan on having that for a long time. We got a big, huge laundry room on the second floor, right in between all the bedrooms. It's freaking awesome. We got our master bedroom on the second floor. We can walk right across and see the kids. We have more space on the main floor for entertaining, for living, right? If I was 78 years old and still kiteboarding, I'm going to guess that I'm going to have a hard time running up and down stairs, even though I'm probably still kiteboarding. That wouldn't work for me. So one or the other, and this is a very, and when you're listing a property, you will say upper level laundry. And it will be obvious that I don't sell it that it has an upper level master because it's not as good for resale value. We actually have a bedroom on our main floor that is my office currently. And if we were to go to sell this house, that could be a main floor master. It has what's called a cheater ensuite. So you can get into the bathroom from the bedroom, but that's also the main floor bathroom, so people can come in another door. So two very different features that are benefits for some buyers and the opposite of a benefit for other buyers, which would be a disadvantage, would be the opposite of a benefit, okay? I'm not gonna sell a house with an upper level master and an upper level laundry and just a giant open main floor to a couple, one that just had knee surgery and the other one needs a new hip. It's not gonna happen, right? That's a lot of the people that are looking in Grand Bend often. So, we have to be careful with that. But I knew building this house that we weren't going to be looking to sell it right away, and we were going to get our use out of what we paid into the house by the time we went to sell it, which could be 30 years from now. Who knows? So pools. This is one of those things that everybody, and I talked about this in the week 13 notes too, everybody automatically, you can't sell a house with a pool. Every house I've listed with a pool, I've found the exact opposite to be true, because once the buyers come along that have been waiting for a nice house with all the stuff they want in it that also has a pool, they just buy it. Not for less money, sometimes even a little bit more. It doesn't add much value, but on the other side of that, and maybe this is why they don't show as much, there are people that just absolutely don't want to have anything to do with the pool. It's work, right? It's not that it's dangerous, it's just work. You have to have the fence around it. And hot tubs are work for people. A lot of times when people see hot tubs, they're like, make sure that hot tub's out of here when we close, right? That kind of thing. I'm the opposite. I like hot tubs. I would be happy to have a hot tub. I put a hot tub at our house. I haven't filled it up yet because I don't have the electrical work done. But so these can be hit and miss things that are there. A pool is always a feature, but that feature may or may not be a benefit depending on the buyer. That's what I'm trying to say. You're gonna always have a list of features. What you want to do is bring in the buyers and focus on the features that you know for them are actually benefits. Okay? So, and I will ask you a question about that. That's a really good one. Always have features. So if you guys are watching this at home, online, you should be making a note on that. Always have features, but they may or may not be benefits. Okay, it's good to understand that features are what usually generate the benefits, especially when you're thinking of it from the context of a house. Benefits sell more than features. You can sit there all day long, here's some examples, and tell people, hey, you should see these massage showers they have on the second floor. It's so amazing. Like, they have these two huge bedrooms. They both have en suites. They both have these massage showers. And this house is such a good deal. It hasn't sold for a couple months. And maybe it's because the neighborhood is full of families. And families need a bathtub on the second floor in between all the bedrooms. They don't need individual en suites. It's not a cottage for them. It's going to be a house. And even though that's a good deal, it's not the right stuff for them. So that's the example I was thinking of, because that actually happened to me. And I knew what I was doing after the second time I showed it, because I kept showing it to people saying, look how good of a deal this is. And then I realized I wasn't showing it to the buyers that would connect with those features and see them as benefits. Then I finally had a buyer. They were a family, but they were a family, more mature family. So there was the older couple, and then they had 3 kids, and one of their kids had already had kids, so they were going to take the basement area, and the other kids would use the 2 bedrooms on the side that connected to the other ensuite, and it was going to work for them. But they didn't freak out because there wasn't a bathtub up there, where the couple with 4 kids was like, we have to have a bathtub by our bedrooms, and there's 2 showers. So yeah, it's a great deal, but as soon as we buy this house, we're going to do a bathroom renovation. So you see what's happening, right? To us as realtors, we're like, oh, holy crap, look how cool this is. look at this stuff I don't usually see in houses, generally speaking, but oh crap, it doesn't actually help the buyers that I have here today. So you want to think about that stuff. So the buyers don't want the 2 massage showers. They don't want the double ensuite, which I didn't put in there. Show buyers a home that provides them the benefit of bathing their kids close by all the bedrooms. Show them stuff like that instead of showing them this. It's a really easy solution. Well, how do I know what house? Because you guys know, you've seen me pull up the listings many times. When you list a property, you list all the rooms, every level they're on, and what's in the rooms, and the features, and all that stuff in the rooms. Are they benefits to your buyers or not? Depends on the family anatomy, who the buyers are, what kind of life they live, that sort of stuff. So, my point here, just because it's a killer deal does not mean it's right for every buyer. Just because it's a killer deal doesn't mean you're going to be able to turn around and sell it immediately for more money. It's a good deal. It hasn't sold in a couple months, so now they've dropped the price. It's going to be just as hard for you when you go to sell it. Think about it. Right? Never buy something that you know you're going to have to sell right away unless it's really, really cheap. Okay, you have to be careful with that. That was one of those investor things. That's not going to be a test question, but I'd probably ask you about the point there. Just because it's a good deal, okay, and I'd probably put that into a multiple choice question. That seems like a really logical multiple choice question to ask. Doesn't mean every buyer is going to want it. I'll come up with a way to phrase that question. Okay, so there's a couple questions for you. Everybody who's watching at home, everybody here today, I appreciate that. Okay, somewhere along the line, to make sure your buyers understand that you're showing them benefits and you're not just showing them, here's a bunch of stonework, look how well done it is. Here's a big huge kitchen with professional grade appliances so the master chef in your family can really enjoy cooking. Oh, but we don't have a master chef in the family. Oh crap, see what you're doing? You're selling the house and you're not selling the benefits. Take the family with the master chef into that house, not the family that doesn't care about that stuff, that's too busy to make these crazy meals every night because they're running their kids to hockey all the time. Right? They want a more functional kitchen. They want something probably more like our kitchen where we have like a pantry that you walk into from the garage through the mudroom and then it goes into the kitchen. Or you can walk into the house so you can drop all your stuff there and kind of sort it out there and then get it into the kitchen, and more functional, right? Less flashy in terms of the quality of the appliances, and like a 7-burner stove that takes up half the counter with this giant hood vent, and it's unnecessary for us, right? Our kitchen's a little more subtle. So the value proposition, you have to think about why, okay? And I will ask you about that too. So value proposition, why? Why do they want the house? Why do they want to list with you? It's the same thing when you're flip it around. It's the same thing when you're listing. Why would they list with you? Well, they want to sell their house. Yeah, okay, fine. But that would be the value proposition for any realtor. Why do they want to list with you is where you have to come up with something you're going to do that creates the value proposition. This is a big deal as of late. You have to give people, investors, you have to give investors a value proposition. Here's why you want to do this. Because I'm going to give you this much return over this amount of time. You're going to be part of a startup at the very beginning of it that very few other people have the, I guess, I don't want to say luxury, but it would be an exclusive type of thing, right? You want to give them a value proposition. So that's talking about the why, and it connects right back to benefits. But when you're doing the listing, you have to get a little bit of that everywhere in the listing about all the benefits, because you don't want to miss the people who might see those features as benefits. So what is the point of all this? Sell according to who your buyers are, not according to what the house is. Okay, there's a test question for you. Sell according to who your buyers are, not what the house is. Okay. What if a buyer is a rental property investor? Totally flips everything upside down. Totally different. Here, check out this list. And this is just most of these notes I've created with my own experience. And here's something I wanted to mention in week 14. I didn't mention it the whole time because I never wanted to go through this course and make it seem like, oh, yada, yada, yada. And for the people that actually listen to these entire podcasts, now you can hear one of the reasons that I was so excited and comfortable about me taking over this course, my taking over this course. It used to drive me nuts when I took courses in university and I went back and I got my master's in digital marketing, digital media innovation to be specific, when I was being taught by people who were teaching us about these disciplines, but they weren't actually doing it. Like I was being taught by somebody how to start up a business, for example, that never started up their own business. Why? That doesn't make any sense. So when I put some of this material in, please understand that it's based on my years of experience in recent time dealing with certain types of buyers, certain types of real estate, certain types of transactions. And this slide is a perfect example of that because I started my business in real estate as the marketing professor realtor. I'm doing the hand quotes right now because I was the guy selling real estate around the college that knew that area better than anybody because I was a full-time professor at the college. That's how I got my sort of initial niche going, my initial niche. I was the professor realtor that knew student rentals around Fanshawe better than anybody. And here's some of the things I learned. It's very simple and quite obvious once you see them, okay? So the benefits on the previous slide, they wouldn't be the same here. They would be totally different and very often the total opposite of what you'd think most people would want because they don't necessarily care about what they're going to have to do if they have to sell the house a couple years from now. They're collecting real estate to liquidate 20, 30, 40 years from now. They're investors. They're collecting real estate. These are not flippers. They're different, okay? Flippers are different. Average rent per room, the average rent per house in a neighborhood. I never even have to discuss that with most homeowner type buyers that I'm working with. That is the first thing before we even see a house that would come up here around the college. First thing, okay? What are they getting? And that's how I pulled so many buyers away from the Western market. Because in the Western market, I know Will and I have talked about this, you have houses around Western that before they were passing bylaws that you could only have 5 bedrooms, these are massive, huge houses that are zoned multifamily, some of which have like 9, 10, 12 bedrooms. And those houses, if you can get them in the price range between 400 and 500, which you really can't now, but that's going to make some decent money. Okay, you need to go back to my week 13 notes. Rate of capitalization is very simple. How much does the house cost? Divided by the money you make each month. And if you're over 7 or 8%, that's pretty good, right? It's hard to buy stocks that'll give you 7 or 8% return. And if you do that over year after year after year, even if the real estate market goes down a bit, you're not doing too bad. So what I'm talking about here is a completely different type of mentality with this type of buyer, the investor buyer, which means the benefits they're looking for are completely different. The number one benefit they're looking for is how does the property cap? What's the cap rate? Is the rate of capitalization half decent? So what I started to notice is that some of the houses around Western, even the ones that were like 4 or 5 bedrooms, they were still pushing 400 grand and they were getting 450 to 500 a bedroom. Same exact price as Fanshawe per bedroom, where the houses were 200 to 230. So what the heck were these guys doing over there, paying almost double for a house that was making the same amount of income per month? So it was a very simple way to approach buyers who were looking for the benefit of investing their money in a worthwhile place. That was the benefit they were looking for, a good investment. To make sure they get this, they look for places that are in neighborhoods that are generally good for renting. They don't look for stuff on streets where they know it's going to be a problem if there's students having a 25-foot bonfire in the backyard. Now every single house on Fleming Drive and Prosperity are pretty much rentals, so when that happens, people don't complain, they just go over to that house and hang out there. Okay, I know this seems crazy that kind of thing would be seen as a benefit to a buyer but think about the type of buyer. They do not want fine after fine pinned on them by the City of London because their students are going to be students. No matter how good of renters you think you get, they're always going to have a fire, okay, at some point. And there's always going to be a couch in there or some ridiculous thing that shouldn't have got in the fire. And then everybody's like, God damn it, Randy, you did it again. And it's just a big mess. If you're in a neighborhood where that stuff generally happens anyway, you probably won't even get a call about it. You just have some garbage to clean up because students in that neighborhood aren't that great at that either. Okay, so is it a rental neighborhood? My family buyers don't want to have anything to do with a rental neighborhood. My investor buyers do. And these are rental property investors, right? There's different types of investor buyers. This is a new one that I'm running into a lot in Grand Bend. So in Grand Bend, we have a very, very robust and healthy vacation rental market. Meaning that 3 years ago, somebody's cottage downtown that they might have got $1,800 for, they are now renting for $2,800. It's crazy. A week, okay? Not a month, but a week. And since Airbnb has become so popular, they're renting it per night in any of the areas where they don't fill it up for a week. Now, renting it per week means less work for you as the owner, but there are rental agencies that help with this, and there's all this stuff. That's not the point of this bullet point, though. The point of this is a market where that is just prolific. It's everywhere. Weekly rentals. But every single condo, except like 2 in Grand Bend, and there's about 6 or 7 different condos, they all have rules against weekly rentals. So I will literally show an investor a really good deal in Grand Bend, and the second we find out they can't do weekly rentals, we're not even showing the property. We're not even looking at it, even though it's a great deal. Not even looking at it. And a family that's going to live there, they would want the opposite. They'd be in support of this rule. Now, it's a little weird given that you go to a place like Florida and the entire condominium market down there survives on weekly rentals. Every condo is set up for weekly rentals, even the ones where all the senior buyers are there and they've been there forever and they want everybody to obey. They don't want that rule to go away because that's how they afford to keep that condo. It probably makes them money. It's a great investment. The owners of the condos in Grand Bend just haven't come around on that yet. It's really tough. Because here's the thing though, if they could be rented weekly, they'd be too expensive by now. And the demand, it just would be too much. So that's something that people are looking at as well if they're investors. Families want a big backyard for their kids. Investors want a little tiny yard, so students can't trash it. And there's less work for them to clean it up. There's less lawn to mow. I got a letter from the City of London when I owned one of my rentals on Michael because the neighbors complained that I hadn't cut my lawn. Massive lawn, like massive. It was just, I had time. One week I did the back and not the front. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I should have done the total opposite. But then the neighbor called, get your lawn cut. And I didn't get fined. I went over there and did it right away. But smaller will make some, very few people would prefer a house without a garage. Who wants no garage? Short-term rentals, student rentals, tenant rentals, like tenancy rentals in like the East Village area, you do not want a garage. Because what does a garage do when you have tenants? It's just a big box to fill up with shit that they're going to leave there when they vacate. Okay? People think I'm nuts. They're like, oh, no way, everybody wants a garage. I got in this huge argument with my former real estate partner. That's not why we parted, but he was a great guy. He just didn't want to do real estate anymore. And I said, rental buyers don't really care about a garage to the point where I think they didn't even have a garage. The only ones that really did were ones that were buying something that they were going to fix up a bit. It really wasn't much of a rental neighborhood, and they were going to sell it a year later anyway. Then a garage thing is good for resale. If you're heavy, full-on rental neighborhood, you don't want a garage. If you're a family, if you're like a couple that has cool cars and all this stuff, total opposite. You want the garage. So you have to go into this business knowing that, hey, here's my buyers. Here are my buyers. I'm going to treat them like this, and good luck. Every single buyer is going to be different. And you have to recognize that because you have to show them the benefits they want. Okay? 15 to 20 year market history. Very few homeowner family type buyers ask me for that kind of data. But I've had so many guys that are exclusively looking for rental properties say, show me what's happened here. every 5 years for the last 20 years, right? And because they want to know that over a long period of time, generally, we are in an uptrend over a long period of time. Yes, things got really bad around 2008 and 2009. Things were really expensive at the beginning of the 90s, and then they crashed a couple of years after that. But this line that's going like this just did a little bit of this on the way up. And that's also in the week 13 notes. You can see the difference between the way real estate moves versus the stock market. It's insane how fast things change in the stock market. So they might want a bigger history, more emphasis on utilities, less on finishing. Oh, I don't care what the kitchen looks like. This is a perfect kitchen for a group of students. This is a perfect kitchen for a couple guys that are here on a contract working on the wind turbines. Who cares if it has granite or not? Who cares, that, what was I thinking about? That it doesn't have central air. The students can just figure it out because that's just going to run up my bills, right? You know what I mean. But the utilities in general, rental property investors, the first place they will go when they go into a house is the basement. They'll look at the wiring, they'll look at the furnace, they'll look at the AC, they'll look at the roof. The first place a family goes is the kitchen, the family room, the size of the bedrooms. These guys don't care about that. They want smaller rooms. They want more rooms. They don't care about how nice the rooms are. They want more rooms. They care about room quantity, not room size. So a totally different type of buyer. Then you have the flipper, who I do consider sort of an investor. A lot of people crash and burn on this because they overpay for a flip. You have to be very careful, especially in sellers markets. If you plan to flip a house, you need to get it so much cheaper than your comparable sales. You need to steal this thing. It's got to be a bank sale. It's got to be like just people just missed it and you just swooped in and took it and you got the best deal ever. It's got to be cheap. And to me, the only benefit you need to show a flipper is that they're getting something at least 20% under market. Because it's not good enough that it's just that cheap because it's so messed up. It has to be so messed up that most normal people beyond contractors can't see past the filth and the crap and the nonsense. I showed a place in Exeter. It literally, I think I talked about this at the beginning of the course. It literally was full of raccoon poop. The entire attic. Anybody that went in there walked right out of there. But somebody bought that house for next to nothing, cleaned it up and sold it and made a bunch of money. Okay? I wasn't taking people there because I knew what had been in there. It's just like, I'd never seen anything like it. I don't know why the raccoon chose to do these 4 rafters, and then down the center there was no poop. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, and it smelled like death. It was just insane. So I couldn't show it again after that because I can't show that to most people. I did have a contractor that would have been all over it. He couldn't move fast enough, but I could tell when I was in there, I'm like, this is still a well-built house. Somebody's just let it go. But most people couldn't see past that. Most people couldn't see past a literal pile of poop. So that person got a good deal, even in a seller's market. They got it. They paid pretty much what the lot was worth and didn't have to tear down the house. So flippers, that's what it's all about. You're working with a flipper, and good freaking luck, by the way, in a seller's market. Like flippers tend to be a waste of time because they'll lowball and lowball and lowball offer after offer. And you get that feeling when you write up an offer like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to sell something here. And then you don't. Okay, and that sucks. Okay, so if it happens over and over again, it's not a good feeling because it just wastes a lot of time. Just be aware that your service deliverables, meaning the way you service a buyer, the way you talk to them about a house, the way you take them inside of a house, the way you present things to them, they are going to be different for every buyer, okay? Because every buyer wants different benefits and needs different benefits, and the same exact house could maybe demonstrate very different benefits from one buyer to the next. What about sellers? Okay, so this is a big thing too. Everyone is competing for commission. All right? So you just got to Yeah, you got to do what you can for your seller. So what means the most to your seller? It's not always just about money. That is a big deal, but determine if you can demonstrate benefits over and above your competition. You're probably going to have to match somebody's price anyway. So what can you do over and above that to make sure you still get the listing at the same price? And again, it's about benefits. Well, my signs look like this. How does that benefit? Who gives a crap about signs? People are always talking about their signs. Like, it doesn't matter. Okay? Get a sign on the house that people can see. That's all that matters. Right? So you want to talk about things like, well, I have special knowledge about the Conservation Authority. I have special knowledge about severing lots. And you have a double lot here, which doesn't even require a severance because it's actually a full lot in the plan. That's a whole other thing. These are things you'll learn if you become a realtor, but there's special knowledge, okay? I live in Grand Bend. I get a lot of listings because I live in Grand Bend. People have called a couple realtors. They have their buddies from London. I live 3 minutes away. I'll get the listing because they never have to worry about me not being there to make sure their listing is presented as good as it possibly can be. I live there. I'm right there. I moved to this subdivision 5 years ago. I'd never sold a thing in that subdivision. And after I moved there, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 deals in that subdivision in 3 years. Never done one there before, but then I lived there and I got all these deals because you're out there, you're talking about it, right? They want to see your face. They want to be close to it. So some of them do, all right? Some of them are just about the commission, and you'll just have to keep lowering it to the point where you can't stand it anymore and then see if you get the listing. Okay, some of them are like that. That the benefit is money. Some of them want to get it right off the market really quickly, and that's not always about price. There are other ways you can do that. There are tactics you can use, pressure tactics in the listing. You can do things that you have to be in a seller's market for that to work. You can say something like it's literally like a limited time offer because if they don't sell the house in a month, they're probably not going to build. Instead, they're going to renovate. You can say stuff like that even if it's not entirely true. You need to be truthful, but you need to, your job is to represent your client. Your job is not to take care of all the people that might buy it unless they also become clients. We're going to talk about that today too. So daily hand-holding versus hands-off. Some people don't want to have anything to do with you. Get the sign on my property. I don't want to hear about it till it's sold. That's it. I love those clients. I love them. I can give them that kind of service anytime of year. The features within the listing package. I do offer specific types of listing media that other realtors don't. Most realtors will not sit down and write a professional script and narrate your virtual tour in a closed room with a professional microphone and make it sound like a TV commercial. So I add little things that other people don't. You want to try and do that. So there's a lot of repeat stuff here from previously in the course. So as you're trying to make this proposition to them, here's why I'm better. Of course, it's going to go back to the personal connection. I've been talking about that the entire course. But talk about why they would use you. Here's why you should use me. And then you flip right up to that list above and connect it directly to their property. There's got to be some kind of connection or relationship, even if the relationship is with your knowledge and their property. Okay? So a connection or a relationship. Then, package deals. People that want to sell more than one thing at a time. Builders that are going to be working with you for years. Give them a freaking deal, okay? Tell them that you're the one that works with builders. You tell them you've got a proven track record. And always show up knowing the market. And this is what a lot of my face-to-face students missed in our week 13 notes last week because we had to cut it off early. So you do need to refer to those notes before the test. Week 13 notes talk a lot about that. That's the whole point of understanding what everything else sold for and what everything's worth is so that when you go in to try and get a buyer to make a certain offer or get a seller to list with you, you actually know what you're talking about, which is why it was at the top of the other list where it says knowledge there. Promotional add-ons can help too. So I'm not going to pretend that I haven't done this once in a while. Well, list with me and I'll give you this. List with me and I'll do this, right? So referral kickbacks. Get me a listing and I'll give you a cut. And no, it is not legal for someone who is not a licensed realtor to be out there selling and marketing properties, but it's completely acceptable for them to be in marketing for you and for you to pay them a fee for that marketing, which could be a referral fee if they get you a listing that ends up selling, or a buyer that ends up buying, right? So that could have been on the previous slide too, right? You can give them promotional add-ons. Gift packs, like you can give them, I've given people parasailing, I've given people booze a lot. I tend to give people a lot of alcohol. They seem to like that, right? And they remember that. And that might be part of the value proposition. Well, we're going to pay the same whoever we use, so we might as well use Sloan because we'll get a free case of beer. I know it seems insignificant, but every little bit helps, right? Bottom line, don't go in and just quote a commission, okay? You have to show benefits. That's what the whole first half of this lecture is all about. You got to show benefits. All the stuff you've learned in this course about how to be knowledgeable, how to be better equipped, how to be ready for market changes, how to understand how to run your own work-life balance and get the ins and outs of basic real estate paperwork and all this stuff. None of it really matters if you can't communicate with the people that are going to make you money. That's what the most important thing is. And if you can show them benefits, you're communicating. So this is a big, huge deal. Okay, so as you're getting closer and closer to these buyers, or you've contracted in with the seller, you will encounter situations where you're dealing with people on both sides. Okay, and you need to understand the difference between clients and customers. And we talked about multiple representation in a previous week. We're going to get into that a little more here. But here we're going to really get this defined. I saved this for the end of the course because it's one of those really important concepts that you need to understand very well. There are two big differences between the brokerage's obligations to a client versus a customer. Notice how it refers to the brokerage, because you, as an independent sales representative, must be employed by some brokerage in Ontario. So the brokerage is always the agent, okay? And if you have gotten into an agency relationship with someone, it could be for customer service or they could be a client. And very often, if you're giving somebody customer service, that might be without an actual contract. Okay, so first, and I'm reading this to you because that's how important it is. I know this is a podcast and you could read it yourself, but I want to make sure you go through this. If you are a client, the brokerage has an important obligation to you called fiduciary duty. I will ask you about this on the test, okay, for sure. You do not owe fiduciary duty to a customer. You got to be honest and nice and whatever to the customer, but you don't owe them everything, so to speak. And I don't want to just simply define fiduciary duty as everything, because I do later in the notes show you exactly what this is, but you owe them that. So it's a higher level of transparency, of information, of communication, and you always have to be right on top of it when someone is in a client contract with you. Automatically, when you have listed a property for sale, that seller is a client. Okay, just to give you an idea. A buyer is not automatically a client. You can provide a buyer with customer service only, okay, even in an agreement with them. You must promote and protect your best interests in the real estate transaction. So that's what the realtor must do. If you're a customer, the brokerage does not have that obligation, but is still obliged or obligated to be fair, honest, and act with integrity, to provide you with conscientious and competent service. They still have to do their job, but they don't have to go out of their way to do every single thing that they ask you to do, right? It's not like that. Second, if you are a client looking to purchase a property under the legislated code of ethics, so there's actually a code of ethics for this, the salesperson must take reasonable steps to determine and then disclose to you all material facts about the property. If you are not a client and just a customer, if you knew, now here's where I'm a little different than some realtors. If you knew a house was a grow-up, and now you don't legally have to disclose that since marijuana has become legal in this country, I think that's a little weird, because I thought the reason that grow-ups needed to be disclosed was because of the potential damage that kind of activity inside of a home with all the windows and doors closed off could cause to the framing. It rots it out, right? But you no longer have to disclose a property as a grow-up, even if you are aware that it is a grow-up. Okay, that is a material fact. If you have a customer looking at it, you don't have to tell them that. If you're in a client agreement with this person, and like a buyer representation agreement, and they are a client, you do have to tell them that. It seems a little weird because my conscience alone would kind of lead me to want to tell them that. Be like, by the way, this was a grow-op. And I think that's a bit of a leverage position too. I don't care that it's legal now and you don't have to disclose it. It's still a bit of a stigma. A stigma meaning that something that bad happened in the house, like somebody died in the bedroom, somebody killed themselves in the bathtub. I sold a house like that. That was a weird one because I was not aware that had to be disclosed, but because of the nature of the suicide, there was some sort of criminal activity involved. It did. So if there's criminal activity involved, it does have to be disclosed. If somebody just took a bunch of pills, it didn't. But there were guns involved that were not legal firearms, and that's why it was criminal activity. And I don't know why I'm talking about this because it upsets me that this happened to this guy. Of course, the family that bought it, the dad's a firefighter. He's like, I've seen much worse stuff than that. This is nothing. He just gets this great deal on a house because somebody committed suicide in the bathroom. And it was somebody up in Grand Bend. They were working on the turbines, and they had a bad relationship situation, and the guy was all by himself. It makes me feel bad. I just get upset about that stuff. But that is not something that I would have had to disclose to them had there not been any sort of illegal act. It's really on this weird, but I disclose everything. Here's the best way to be. Just tell everybody everything you know, and then you don't have to worry about it. Just be careful you don't shoot yourself in the foot. So when you have a client looking, though, you have to tell them this stuff, okay? All material facts, anything that you are aware of. If it is found that you were aware that there was water in the basement and then you never told them, you can get sued. And you can get sued for the amount it would cost to fix them. And that's not necessarily something that errors and omissions is going to cover. If you are seen to be negligent, that's going to be on you. If you're a customer, however, the salesperson does not have to disclose that stuff. So those are the big differences, right? It's like the level of detail. Okay? If you get into a situation where the buyer also wants to be represented as a client, it can get a bit hairy. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to watch a quick video. I need everybody at home to pause this now and go into the notes and pull this video up. This is some nice review from the other week where we talked about multiple representation, and then I will come back to you in just a minute. Okay, so based on that video, I will mention to you guys, you don't have to worry that much about remembering to include all that specified information that has to be in all the contracts with any client, because it's automatic when you download the forms from your preset form tool that you'll be using in whatever real estate board that you're in. You'll be given that stuff no matter what. But what they don't really mention when you look at some of this Real Estate Council of Ontario stuff is that a customer is still a customer even without a paper agreement, where a client is only a client if you have a contractual paper agreement. And that's the way I've always known it to be, and that's the way I always treat people who don't have a contract with me but are inquiring about properties. I give them the amount of information. I give them a fair amount of information, things that I think they need to know. If I know the house was slammed into by the tornado, but I know the owners have fixed it all up and there's no issues now, they don't need to know all that stuff. That's just going to freak them out. But I tell them, yeah, the house is in great shape. They just put a new roof on. I don't need to tell them that the reason they put a roof on is because a tornado wrecked the previous one. I just don't. If they were a client, I would give them the whole story. So that's probably an even better example than some of the examples they had in their video, because it's and that person doesn't necessarily have a contractual paper agreement with me, but I still consider them a customer. It is someone who I owe a level of fairness to, a level of information that I deem to be acceptable and fair, that the market would deem to be that way as well. Okay, to establish a client relationship, you do need to have a contractual paper agreement, and you can have buyers that are clients that haven't even bought anything because they have agreed to enter into a buyer representation agreement with you. This is not something I spent a lot of time getting into in this course because I don't generally do them. I'm of the opinion that if you get close with a buyer and they're ready to buy, if you're doing your job, you shouldn't have to worry about that buyer going off and buying with somebody else. And if the buyer ends up finding something private, then you can work something out with them. I never ask people for money, but I have had buyers that have ended up shopping with me for like 8 months and then the best deal we end up finding is a private deal, so they throw me like a couple grand or something, right? It's not a normal size commission, but it's better than nothing. And buyers aren't used to having to pay commission out of their pocket, and it does happen. But if you lock them into a buyer representation agreement, it almost makes them feel like, this is what I've found, that it's, so generally buyers with me are customers until they make an offer, and then they become clients, because then I set them up with a buyer rep agreement just for that home. I don't do it for the entire town or something. Sellers are automatically clients as soon as they list a property, because we're in a contract. So all that information would be in there. But the biggest thing you have to know here is the way I really dumbing it down. But clients need to know everything. Customers need to know the important stuff, right? It's kind of an easy way to think of it. Now, I talked about multiple representation weeks ago. We've gotten into it more here. And this happens a lot these days when you're in sellers markets where things are going for multiple offers. What happens is you have a lot of people out there that just they don't think they need their own realtor. I think that's a mistake. I think they'd be better served to have a buyer realtor. But a lot of people are just in the habit of always calling the realtor's name who's on the sign. And you might list a property and end up having multiple buyers that came directly to you at the same time that you have other offers that are coming from buyers with other realtors. And this can get very tricky because those buyers are owed a higher level of service and information than the other ones, but when you have multiple offers, you can't reveal the details of any offer to any buyer, whether they are clients or customers. So it gets pretty hairy because, and at the end of the day, and this is going to be my last test question hint for today, I will ask you this, and I'll come up with a way to phrase it, because this is, and I've got about half the test done at this point, but I still need to put some more questions in from the final weeks. And the biggest issue is if you're approaching a listing agent that's selling a property and you do not have a client contract with that listing agent, their only job as the listing realtor is to sell that property for as much money as they can. If you get a buyer's realtor to bring in your offer, their job is to get the price as low as they can. But then you get into the multiple offer situation, and what it comes down to in that case is where and when the realtor has chosen to give the seller a better deal if they're double ending it. You know what double ending means? There'll definitely be a question on that, okay? Where the seller pays a little bit less commission if they do both the buyer and seller agreements. And in that case, they can often end up, without even really doing it on purpose, getting a buyer to come in higher than another offer that maybe could have gotten the property because the seller, or lower. It's very hairy what happens there, because their first job, first and foremost, was to represent that seller and get them as much money as they can. If they can double end it, they pay even less commission. But then there's this little bit of a spot where you might get an offer that's actually lower than the next best offer, but it's a better offer for the seller because the seller pays less commission if it's double ended. That's what I was trying to explain. And then you get into this really contentious battle between the two sides where are you really getting this guy the best deal? I guess you would be if you got it lower than the next best offer, because by coming directly to you, they paid less commission. But that is not always the case, and this is something that in the Toronto board, when they had all that crazy multiple offer stuff going on in 2016 and 2017, a lot of realtors were advocating to have that changed so that if there were multiple offers, the seller didn't get to double end it. It is what it is. They were going to get so much more than they planned to get anyway. And I don't know about that. I think that a realtor being allowed to double end something and wanting to work that much harder to get the seller to pay a little bit less and earn the realtor a little bit more is a really good aspect to the business. If you want to be the listing agent and try and get the buyer as well. But there are some situations where it does get kind of messy. So here is an infographic. I'm not going to talk to this too much in the podcast. I'm almost done here. These next two slides are mainly for you to study, okay? I know I have a lot of study type stuff in the notes since week 7, and that's why I am going to focus mainly on the notes for this test. Okay, so, and that's the first half of the questions that I've already done. The vast majority of them are pulling directly from points in the notes, not necessarily things I just may have said. And I waited until week 14 to tell people that because I didn't want them to just skip over all my podcasts. That's a big part of this course, is not just seeing the material, but getting it explained to you by a person that's in this business, okay, by a person that does this. That was that point I was making earlier, that I was excited to teach this course because I'm not just teaching it like, here's what it'd be like if you were in real estate. I'm teaching it to you like this. Here's what it is like if you're going to be in real estate, okay? So this slide and the next one, you should spend some time with before the test. I will mention it now in the latter part of this podcast, and I'll mention it again in my next video and in class. I am allowing you guys to bring in an 8.5 sheet by 11 piece of paper for the test. You just can't print on it, meaning digital print. You can print. You can print with a pen. You can print, okay, but you can't print digital pen. And I'm going to allow you to do both sides and put as much stuff as you can on it that you think might help. I don't think those things help people as much as they think they do during the test. The reason I like to allow students to do them is that because I think that in the process of making them, you guys end up remembering a lot of the stuff. So it's an extra. You don't have to do it. It's totally up to you if you want to do it or not. But stuff like this, you could paraphrase these lists. I might ask you to pull from some of these lists. Like the following are general obligations owed to clients. The following are fiduciary, right? I might ask questions like that. And then to wrap it up finally in our very last lecture here, because as you know, the next one is just going to be a material overview. If you do get into this business and you do find that you're doing quite well, don't make the mistake I've made by, number one, not asking for testimonials and not compiling them and collecting them somewhere. Every time I go to a realtor's website and I see a big bunch of testimonials with all these people saying all these awesome things about them, even me as a fellow realtor, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I would see that and I would think that was cool. I buy everything on Amazon based on freaking reviews. I don't even look at price anymore. It's all reviews. So it's a huge thing, and I just don't want you guys to overlook it. I saved it for my very last point in the course because you can do it so easily. All you have to do is ask. That's all you have to do. Hey, can you write me a testimonial? Most brokerages do a little bit of it for you. I have surveys. I've gotten a bunch of copies of surveys that people have really filled out, that they've actually filled out. It's hard to get a good response rate because most of them are mailed. You can also do stuff where you can ask somebody. A lot of people think this is kind of neat. More so millennials and Gen Z and stuff like that. You could say, hey, do you want to do like a quick 30-second blurb about your experience like buying a house with me? And they're like, oh yeah, cool. That's a testimonial though. And it's also a great thing to put. I've never done it. And I only see a few realtors that are actually doing it. This one in Huron County, she does such a great job. I want to drop her name and I can't remember it right now. It's Brenda Campbell. I think it's Brenda Campbell. It's awesome. Her Facebook, she does these stories, these sort of lifestyle kind of snapshots of her buyers and how they're experiencing the house. She'll go back a month later and talk to them about what's going on, and if there's something wrong, she turns it into this positive thing that they fixed, and it's pretty cool. I'm almost certain it's Brenda Campbell, if somebody were to look that up. So, on that same note, and I did bring this up previously in the course, but you knew I was going to bring it up again, please keep your leads organized. Okay, and CRM software, you don't have to pay for it. I have built into my board's login, you're all going to be part of a real estate board, you will all have built in some sort of CRM platform. You will all be given something as basically part of being with your brokerage or being a realtor in the board you're in. Just start with that. You don't have to pay for something. Just start with that and see what works. Maybe you can just do something custom in Excel that just works for you. Okay, it's up to you guys, but you definitely do want to do something like that. Okay, so those are my parting thoughts, the biggest of which is going to be ask for testimonials. And come back for the final video before you take the final test, because I will do a nice little overview. It won't be too long. I'm not going to give you a bunch of questions, but I'm going to give you a good idea of what's going to be on there, and I probably will give you a few more questions. Okay, and then you'll be able to take the final test. You'll be done with the course. I will see you in the next video.